what America voted for was America first, and transgender operas in Chile isn't exactly America first. And to say that USAID was
said a lot of words, but you've said nothing. You haven't addressed the Constitution, the Supreme Court cases, the Impoundment Control Act. None of that. You can say that you don't think it's right to feed starving children in Africa. That's your prerogative.
Sam Seder was a guest on Piers Morgan's show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, where he went up against Jillian Michaels and far right-wing messenger or commentator Benny Johnson. We're going to take a look at some clips from the episode from Piers Morgan's show. I'm going to give my thoughts on their verbal battle because this was a great back and forth. Let's watch this together.
Sam, let's talk for a moment about the other big thing that's going on, which is this whole Doge stuff with Elon Musk. You, I think, posted that the idea that Doge is in any way about efficiency is absolutely a joke. They're not doing an audit. They're destroying the apparatus of our government. What do you base that on?
Well, audits are done regularly of agencies by inspector generals. The first thing they did was to fire all those inspector generals and not replace them. A. B. Audits that lead to firings within a couple of days are obviously not being done. The notion that this is about efficiency when you're laying off thousands of IRS agents when it is well known that every dollar spent at the IRS returns for the government $6 or $7. You're clearly not talking about efficiency here as measured in any other way other than allowing wealthy people to get away with cheating on their taxes. I mean, I could go on, but there's absolutely no evidence that there's a single audit going on. To the extent that they've saved any money, it has been largely dismissed as clerical errors on their part, and we still have no substantiation about it. So it's
hang on. That's not true. I mean, there's some of the stuff that came out about USAID, for example, some of the way that American taxpayers' money was being squandered on ridiculous projects.
Oh, wait a second.
And it wasn't insignificant sums of money.
Wait a second. You can determine that you can have an opinion that it's squandered. I can have an opinion that it's squandered, but it's been appropriated by the Congress. And in America, we have actually both statutory, constitutional, and court cases that say the President of the United States and the executive branch cannot decide unilaterally that they're not going to appropriate money that Congress has appropriated. I mean, the line item video has been found to be unconstitutional. We have the Impoundment Control Act from 1974. We have Train v. New York City from 1974, which is a Supreme Court case which enforces that. What they're doing is fundamentally illegal. I mean, you may think that some of the spending is not worthy. I may think it's not worthy, but that's just not the way our government works.
Okay. Gillian, you were shaking your head there.
Because it doesn't seem that the government is working. As a layman, when the USAID is exposed in the fashion that it has been, and all of a sudden we have this transparency that we've never had in my lifetime.
None of this stuff was hidden at all. None of this stuff was hidden at all. It's just that
so you're telling me that the average American knew that we were funding friggin' operas for trans people in who knows where?
If the average American was interested in what USAID was supporting, they could have just gone to the website.
Do you really believe that?
Yes,
do you really believe that people knew this and this was common knowledge? And there's no question that some of this was a slush fund for the CIA.
Well, actually, you know what? The truth is, you can both be right here.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
Sam is right that it was there to be found, and Gillian's right that absolutely nobody told the American people about the specifics. So actually, you can both be right.
What can happen in our process of government?
No, I understand. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying it wasn't there. I'm not saying it wasn't there to be found. But Benny, it was only when Elon Musk and his young team of guys with their sabers got into it, they found this stuff, right, and told people.
They didn't find it. They just they publicized it.
Well, exactly. But that's how the that's how the American that's how the American people found out about it.
Authority to cut it.
Yes.
So Congress, Republicans control every house of Congress. They control the presidency. They could pass a bill tomorrow saying, we don't want to fund these things. But what's happening when they cut USAID is you've got literally 400,000 meals for children who are technically wasting away. It's in Africa. Maybe my guests don't care about that. But the fact is that they're sitting in warehouses in Rhode Island and in Georgia right now, food that is pre-digested practically because these kids are starving, and it's sitting in warehouses. It's going bad, and they have no way to ship it.
Okay.
Because USAID has been shut down.
All right, Benny.
I'm sorry.
Benny?
That's not constitutional or legal.
Okay, Benny.
It's incredible. So I've heard the Constitution thrown around a lot here. All right, let's talk about Article 2 of the Constitution. The executive branch has a clause called the vesting clause. The vesting clause makes one single man that is elected by the whole American people the only position in the federal government that has the entire whole of the country elect him is the President of the United States, who is vested with the power to oversee the executive. And that includes congressional spending. That includes the functionaries of the government, including the commander-in-chief. There are appointed judges. There are elected at state and local levels, members of Congress, but only the president is elected by the whole American people. Now, I have a giant map in my studio. I don't know if your production team can pop me. There it is. This is what America decided in 2024 in a landslide, and with the popular vote, the whole of the American people decided to vest a single man, Donald Trump, to hunt down waste, fraud, and abuse. Because while maybe there are some type of programs that you might view as just, what I view as just is feeding the American people. What I view as just is filling the potholes, educating, healthcare, and the...
So let's stop right here, because they made two arguments. Do you think the average American knew that these things were going on? That's separate from it was illegal or subversive. It was public. If you wanted to know what we were doing with the USAID, you could always look it up. It was always public. Because you didn't know, that doesn't make it hidden. That doesn't make it anything besides something that wasn't important to you until right now. And then Benny Johnson says, what about potholes here? What about the stuff here? But there's still the party of people who want to cut Social Security and SNAP and doesn't care about the homeless or transportation or healthcare. You can't be against social programs for people here, but then use the fact that people need help as a reason to not help nobody else in the world. We have to make up our minds.
Capacity to serve Americans.
To cut food stamps.
And so what America voted for was America first, and transgender operas in Chile isn't exactly America first. And to say that USAID was
said a lot of words, but you've said nothing. You haven't addressed the Constitution, the Supreme Court cases, the Impoundment Control Act. None of that. You can say that you don't think it's right to feed starving children in Africa. That's your prerogative.
Can we address the feed starving children?
Donald Trump. I can't believe you're going with the starving children. You're going with the starving children.
No, it does. I mean, it does other things.
Benny Johnson is arguing as if he supports policies that benefit the American people. He doesn't. He supports cutting SNAP. He supports cutting Medicare. So he doesn't want to help people here, but he's using people needing help here as a reason not to help anybody else around the world. It's kind of messed up.
You don't.
All right, let me.
But it also does this.
Allow the lady in the room to speak, please.
USAID money spent.
Let Jillian have her say.
On feeding starving children or
guys,
in Ukraine in 2014.
Guys, let Jillian speak for a moment. Jillian.
Big fan of
the
Jillian.
feeding starving children thing is such a frickin' red herring. So first of all, the vast majority of this USAID bloat and corruption does not go to that. Second of all, we have children starving here in America. But third of all, and what you don't know and what you have not looked into, okay, is that read a book. It's called Save 3 Lives, and it's by the Rodale family. And it has to do with the fact that our big ag companies went into the developed world to addict their soil to our GMO crops. It's a money laundering game. They can grow their crops in their soil far more efficiently and did for thousands of years before ConAgra and Cargill and Monsanto and ADM went in. You just don't know that because you haven't done your homework. So you're like, oh, there's children starving in Africa. But really,
She's actually correct here. She's referencing these giant corporations go into these other countries and pretend to help while actually poisoning the farmland to make sure that the people have to keep buying the seeds from those companies. They genetically modify fruits to not have seeds so that the people have to buy continuously more seeds, or else everyone will starve. It's an evil system, but she's actually supportive of the system while knowing that these multinational corporations are not beneficial for nobody but their own bottom line. And calling out Sam Seder about not doing homework is not the best idea.
It's about billions of dollars going to big ag. That's what that's really about. And I've seen it firsthand when I went to South Sudan and stayed at a refugee camp. So don't play your starving children card. I can't.
Well, listen, it's not my card. It's just simply the reality. And the fascinating thing about
it is your card, though. Your game is like nobody's empathetic because children are starving.
We are talking about USAID is a percentage point, like literally less than 1% of the U.S. budget. But because there is this attitude amongst frankly, it's not just USAID. I don't like them cutting the IRS. I don't like them cutting the EPA. I don't like them cutting Labor Department. I don't like them cutting the National Labor Relations Board. I don't like them cutting the FDA.
Do you like the level of USDA? Do you like the level of debt your country's in?
I don't think it's as much of a problem as you do. But here we know the debt shot off like a rocket with the Bush tax cuts and then with the Trump tax cuts, and they want to extend those. And so if we want to deal with the debt, and if that's a genuine concern, we can go back to the time in this country where we had the greatest economic expansion during the 50s and the 60s, when we had a top tax marginal rate of 90% of every dollar that would be earned over $470,000. Today, it would be $3 million. And if these guys are very concerned about the debt and deficit, we have a way of raising that money. We can go back to the greatest economic time of this country. So if that's genuinely their concern, we have that power to do it. I mean, we're not spending as a function of GDP. We're not spending significantly more per capita than we were in those years. The problem is that we don't have the revenue. There's been huge tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires, and presided over by two Republican administrations over the past 20 years.
That point perfectly exposes that Benny Johnson and everyone who agrees with him don't really care about saving money. If it's about saving money, let's tax the richest people the highest amount. We could do that, but that would mean taxing rich people, the richest of people, 90% above 3 million. I think it should be 100% after $999,999,999.99. No more billionaires. Then we're not going to have to worry about saving money. We'll have it. If you care about being efficient with our money, and oh my goodness, we don't have enough money to help the people in America, you can't say that while also enabling all the billionaires in the world. They can't exist without poverty. Billionaires create poverty for their own profit. They need homelessness to hold over your head so that you can take a minimum wage job. And then they bribe politicians to make sure the minimum wage, the minimum they're legally able to pay you, is less than the living wage of that state. They make sure to have laws in place to be able to pay you less than what it would take for you to live comfortably. Not luxuriously, just not constantly on the brink of survival. But if you don't have that quote unquote incentive of not wanting to be homeless, then there's less power the billionaires have over you. And that's what it's all about, controlling the masses. And these critiques are toward the talking heads and the people in power. You can support whatever you want to support, but people like this take money to fight against policies that benefit you. Why? Because they want tax cuts for the richest people, because that's who's funding them. Let me know what you think about all this. Who do you agree with, Sam Seder or Benny Johnson? And if you like what I'm doing in regards to covering these type of topics, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Let's keep it going. Peace.